What's up, folks? Welcome back to the show. What you saw there was a little white boy at a school being beaten up and abused by some black kids at a school. Now, of course, there's no national coverage of this. There's no outrage of a little innocent boy at a playground getting pushed and shoved and ganged up on by a group of black kids. I'm sure they didn't learn that at home, and this is why we have a problem with black crime. Black people think for their own tribe. They think about what's best for their own kind. It's a shame white people don't do that same thing. But this is kind of a harsh reality of what it's like now in the United States. If you send your white child to a school in the United States, which used to be a majority white country, this should be a white Christian country. But now when you send your child to school, you run the risk of them being abused, and generally abused by black kids, because that's how it is when you send your white child to a school now in a country that is no longer a white country.
I get a lot of comments like this on my channel. Jennie, you swung too far. You went from crazy alt-right extremist to crazy, woke, leftist, atheist, feminist extremist. There's a reason for that. I know what they think, and I know what they're after. If I am a left-wing extremist, it's because I know too much. And if you aren't, it's because you know too little. Today, we're going to do my least favorite thing, and we're going to take a little pit stop in Jennie's confession booth so that I can share with you everything that I know about white supremacy in relation to these leaks from the young Republicans. Let's go. I'm Jennie Gage, and this is Life Take 2. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. I know there's a lot of great stuff out there on YouTube, and I always appreciate you stopping on my channel. My name is Jennie. I am former MAGA, former alt-right prepping Mormon trad wifey, white supremacist, and Christian nationalist. And I just try to share my firsthand insider experience from within this movement and this ideology with you. I had a friend in real life who said, Jennie, you're like the Rosetta Stone. So that's what I'm going to try to do today. Before we get started today, I'd like to invite you to join my book club. I will put the link in the description. This month we are reading Feminism is for Everybody, which is just a foundational book for anyone who's interested in civil rights. I've partnered with a publishing company that is offering this audiobook to us for free this month. So all those instructions will be in the video that I will link below. If you don't want to listen via audio, of course, you can pick up the book up at your local library or a bookstore. I'll be doing a book club live stream the first week in November. Everyone is freaking out about this Young Republicans leak, and I just want to read a couple of the texts here. Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. I'm ready to watch people burn now. I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch a monkey play ball. Boom, they're dead. When do we start bullying, dude? They love the watermelon people. Stay in the closet, followed by a slur against LGBTQ. And everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. One of the texts said, if we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real. Of particular interest, William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, he used a racist slang word that starts with an N that I am clearly not going to say variations of this racial slur more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans at the time, referred to sexual assault as, quote, epic. Peter Gayunta, who at the time was chair of that same organization, that wrote in the message in June that everyone who votes no is going to the gas chamber. By the way, these aren't like 14 and 15-year-old kids. This Young Republicans Club is 18 to 40-year-olds. Gayunta continued, I'm going to create some of the greatest physiological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. There are 2,900 pages of chats shared among a dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January to mid-August, and it chronicles their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. Many of the chat members already worked inside government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. Together, the messages reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where the Trump-era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as a party's next leader. The more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it has been with the emergence of Trump and a more right-wing GOP even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and public, said Joe Fagan, a Texas A&M sociology professor who has studied racism for the last 60 years. He's also concerned the words would be applied to public policy. It's chilling, of course, because they will act on those views. Politico goes on to say the dynamic of easy racism and casual cruelty played out often in dark, vivid fashion inside the chats, where campaign talk and party gossip blurred into streams of slurs and violent fantasies. They also talk really openly about continuing their efforts to suppress everything around the Jeffrey Epstein stuff and their love of the Nazi Party. They're really open about that within these chats. So everyone is freaking out about this leak, everyone except me, because I've been part of those conversations my whole entire life. I remember watching a football game with my father-in-law when the receiver dropped the ball. He was black. My father-in-law was furious. All the grandkids are there. We're like, sitting on the couches. I think it was like Thanksgiving weekend, the Thanksgiving football game. And he screamed at the screen, "Put that damn N-word back on the fucking boat, chain him to the anchor, and drag his sorry ass back to Africa." And everyone just goes on like that's normal. And some of the people agreed with him and like, yeah, go get him. When I was in middle school, I was about 13 years old. I wasn't supposed to be dating yet. The rule in my Mormon house was 16 years old. But I had a crush on a boy in my 8th grade class. And so he asked me to go study, and I said yes. And I came home and told my family about it, and I was super excited. And I told them all about him. He was so cute. And the next day I got a phone call from my grandma, who had this huge, long conversation with just me all alone on the phone about how I couldn't date him because I was white and he was Mexican. And my God, like, what was I thinking? And she told me all the reasons why the Mexican people were inferior. And she told me all the reasons why her heart was broken to hear that I had told this Mexican boy that I would go study with him. So I broke up with him immediately. For several years, a member of the Klan, who was always trying to recruit me and my husband to the Klan, mowed our yard. I shopped at a Klan store, which is where I bought these little Confederate flag pins that I used to wear all the time, just as a sign of white pride, so that all of the other racist white supremacist people in my community would know that I was on the right side of things. My chiropractor was KKK. He invited us to come to some of the local Klan meetings, and honestly, the only reason that we didn't go is we were busy. I am a far left activist because I have sat at the dinner table and sat in the church pew and heard people say things that most people have no idea is being said. There's nothing in these chats. There's nothing in any of these conversations that I haven't heard at Thanksgiving dinner. I wish that I could just take a recording device and sit down and secretly record my friends and family from within this community, but they would sue the hell out of me. So I can't. Today, I just want to tell you 2 things about white supremacy. First, it has always been here. You just don't see it unless you're on the inside. It's like when we found this tiny trail of brown mud coming out of our ceiling, and it was so cute. It was like these little brown threads. They were like the color of a paper bag, and they were so thin. There was just a couple of them. And it turned out to be termites. This was just last summer. They'd been there for years, and we never knew until we saw that tiny mud tunnel dripping out of the ceiling. Donald Trump's White House is the mud tunnel, but the termites have always been there, and I used to be inside the ceiling with him, so I know. It seems like this is new, and like, oh my God, all of a sudden we're reverting to racism. No, the racism has always been. I've been over on my TikTok for 6.5 years talking about it. I've been writing about it. I've been screaming about this. It's there. You just don't hear it if you're not one of the in group. Number 2 thing I want you to know about white supremacy. White supremacy isn't what you think it is, and they think they're right and you're wrong. And most of them don't even think they're white supremacists, because even white supremacists only think one kind is bad or fits that definition. They did not think I was a white supremacist while I was because of this. I wrote a Substack article a year ago called I Was a White Supremacist. And the day that I wrote that article, that was the first day that I realized, oh, shit. The 49 and a half years before that, I was just going along like, do. So I want to tell you about the spectrum of white supremacy. And this is something that I've really never, ever heard anybody else talk about. And I think it's really important. Here's the deal. All white supremacists believe that white people are superior. They are genetically, culturally, sometimes religiously, intellectually, just in every way better. The white race is superior. That is the foundation of all white supremacy. That's the whole point. It's what they do with that that's the important bit. So here's the spectrum. Number 1, the first group of white supremacists is obviously clearly the most dangerous. And what these ones want to do is annihilate. Clearly, they are the worst ones. These are the neo-Nazis and your typical alt-right psychos that are arming and training to obliterate. They just want to end lives. Everyone, including these guys, labels this group as white supremacists. And your average American would say these are the only white supremacists. They're clearly the most obvious and they inflict the most harm. But they're just the tip of the iceberg. They're just that little mud trail hanging down from the ceiling. I don't know numbers. I couldn't pull any data because I think it's something that's not well understood. But I'd say for like every one of these guys, there's thousands of the other guys. So number 2, this category just wants to subjugate. This group of white supremacists includes regular people, policymakers, business owners, religious groups, I would say certain states and institutions, some private schools and things like that, that actively keep control out of the hands of non-whites. This group is just all about dominance, but non-violently. These people are openly and actively racist, but very few of them would identify as white supremacist. My father-in-law, who didn't think the quarterback should be playing football, he was, in fact, a white supremacist, but he would undoubtedly tell me he was not because he wasn't violent and he wasn't actively hurting anybody. I fell partly into this category, by the way. I didn't trust non-white people in positions of power. I felt like it was their place to be, like my landscapers and my housekeepers and things like that, but I didn't want them teaching my kids school. I didn't want them in local government. This category is really tricky because on the outside, these people may not look or talk at all like they're white supremacist. Number 3, this group just wants to convert. This is the category that I mostly fell into, and it's utterly nonviolent, relying on God to cast people into the fiery pit and inflict punishment. This group hates non-white culture and feels like everyone who is non-white should talk like, dress like, and behave like white people, and that includes adopting white people's religion. I think that this group is a lot of who's speaking up against Bad Bunny right now, singing at the Super Bowl. This group built the Indian schools that tore Native children away from their families to whitewash them. These are the people who oppose Spanish as a second official language in America. These people will complain about the smell of restaurants in Chinatown, and they'll complain about the Day of the Dead parade. But they don't force their policies and ideas. They're more sweet about it. The Mormon church that I came from sends tens of thousands of missionaries to Africa to convert, to obliterate the culture and beliefs of the Africans and whitewash them. By the way, I spent 5 years in Christianity after Mormonism, and my Christian church did exactly the same thing. They were always sending missionaries to Africa and Muslim countries and Mexico so that they could whitewash the people. So this is mostly what I did. I mostly tried to convert people to my way of life. And I was taught, according to Mormon doctrine, Africans and Native Americans who accept the gospel and are baptized will gradually lighten up. And of course, everyone, when we die and we're resurrected, is going to look like me, because God was a Northern European with blonde hair and blue eyes. So this is mostly what I did. I just tried to convert people. Oh, I also actively voted against things that would help non-whites too, which is part of that subjugation. This style is really tricky because it looks super sweet on the outside, which is why a lot of people argue with me when I say Mormonism is a white supremacist religion. I'll get thousands of comments that say, my Mormon neighbors are so sweet. Yes, they are. But the Mormon scriptures say that white people are better than brown-skinned people and that all brown-skinned people are cursed. And that is by definition white supremacy. But it's really hard to see, and they look really loving. They're adopting Black kids. I have so many Mormon friends that have like one adopted kid from Africa. They're building schools and churches in Africa, but it's still based on the belief that white people, white culture, white religion, white genetics, white ideology is superior. It's the friendly white supremacy. But that friendly white supremacy can be a pipeline into the more aggressive and violent end of the spectrum. And that is what happened to me when I moved to Arkansas and then South Carolina. I became ultra radicalized. And here's the deal. There is no good, healthy white supremacy. White pride and feeling that you are inherently better than non-whites is hateful and wrong, period. Dehumanization, like we see in these texts from the young Republicans, always eventually leads to bigger problems. We as human animals should be curious, cooperative, and compassionate towards everyone. And we should also just embrace reality that humans were brown first. I personally believe that truth matters. I believe that living a life based on data and evidence as far as we can glean is important. And what do all of these texts say about these young Republicans? Again, the word young is so misleading. There are people like 40 years old in this group. It's not really young. Here's what it says. It says that these guys are assholes. Let's stop letting them get away with it. Let's stop voting assholes into power. Let's stop supporting assholes. It's fairly simple. You know what you do with termites? You open up the crawl space and dig them all out. You bust up their colonies before they chew your house to dust. Then you put up this chemical barrier to make sure that they don't dig back into the framing of your house again. And maybe I am a left-wing extremist, because you don't unsee the stuff once you've lived it. You don't forget the smell of hate when it's baked into Sunday dinner. You don't forget the laughter that follows a slur. You don't forget the silence of good people who said nothing. But I also believe, and this is the part that they can't take from me, that love and truth are stronger than fear and lies. I want to end my video with a quote from Dr. King, who said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Heat cannot drive out heat. Only love can do that." Dr. King had a dream. We've heard this so many times. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And we are not there. We haven't reached that dream yet, but I'm not giving it back either. And I'm not here to hate them back. That's not all what I'm about. I'm here to expose them and then out to love them, smother them with toxic empathy and sturdy boundaries, out-organize them and outwork the hell out of them. We're the generation, thankfully. This is the gift of the Trump election, to see the termites. And now that we do, we're tearing down the rot and building something stronger, fairer, and finally safe for everybody. And since it is the No Tuesday,
tomorrow. I'm sure a lot of you will be watching this, and I'm going to post this late so it can be up first thing. I just want to shine a little light on this King's protest. Whether you attend or just in heart, protesting is a powerful tool. It shows those in power exactly how strong the opposition is. So this is an incredibly important step. Oh my God, I literally saw something move against my foot, and in fact that my sister-in-law's mice had got out of the cage, but no, it was just at the hood of my hoodie falling off my shirt. This protest is not the last step. This is the first. So if you attend or if you watch it on TV and you feel energized, let that energy drive you to action. This week, I've been forming a coalition of other people, and we have some action penciled out. This is time to strategically start to push back and resist. What we're resisting right now is not just Donald Trump. It's not just this administration. America has been in decline for decades. The happiness, safety, and security of the regular old American people's lives is in decline. I was watching an economist on a national news program last night talking about how strong the stock market is, but how that more than 90% of people who have investments in the stock market are the ultra rich. A very small fraction of middle-class Americans can currently afford to invest in the stock market. Here's what we're fighting against. We are fighting against the oppression of the working class people. We are fighting against the loss of the middle class. We're not just fighting Trump. We are fighting a system that's stacked against regular people. We're fighting for universal health care for everybody. We're fighting for affordable housing. We're fighting for the right to be able to retire. Do you know that the last generation of Americans who can retire are the boomers? My generation, I'm 51, we will never retire. We're all working for some corporation until we die. It's time that we fight for small businesses again, so that moms and dads can be home with their kids and have flexible schedules and build businesses and produce products that they're proud of. And it's time for us all to be able to have homes and not just rent houses from billionaire investors who've gotten rich off of our most basic primal need. This resistance is about protecting the vulnerable and creating space for every American to live out their life however they see fit. This is so much bigger than Donald Trump, and I hope that all of us can keep that in mind tomorrow, and that we can use this very energizing protest to catapult us into the action that we need to finally correct the wrongs of America's past and present, so that we can move forward into a future that is so much better. I am the mom to 7 kids, bios and steps. I have a grandbaby and a daughter-in-law. And I'm keenly aware of the fact that we are writing their future every day. Long after I'm gone, they will be living with the choices that we made. Let's write a better future for them. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a great weekend. Bye.